You ever feel like you're just a collection of random, frustrating symptoms? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and nothing seems to connect? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on something that might just be the unseen thread tying it all together. It's called insulin resistance, and it's a big deal because it can quietly damage your body for years, even decades, before you ever get a formal diagnosis. Okay, let's get into it.
So, let me ask you this. Do you ever eat a meal, maybe one that's a bit heavy on the carbs, and then, bam, you're hit with this overwhelming urge to just take a nap? We all call it a food coma, but what if it's actually a signal?
Okay, how about this one? You hop on the scale, and the number hasn't really changed much, but your pants are definitely feeling a little tighter around the middle. That subtle shift in where your body is deciding to store fat, that's another potential clue.
And last one for now. What about your brain? You ever feel like you're walking around in a bit of a fog, struggling to focus, maybe losing your train of thought more often? We're quick to blame stress or just getting older, but it could absolutely be part of this same pattern.
So, that post-lunch slump, the expanding waistline, the brain fog, what's the connection? Well, they're not random. They are often just different symptoms of the very same underlying problem in your metabolism. Let's connect the dots.
That connection point is insulin resistance. And get this, it is incredibly common. We're talking about nearly 1 out of every 3 adults in both the US and the UK. That's a staggering number for a condition that so many people have never even heard of until they're dealing with something much more serious.
And that right there is the key. Insulin resistance is basically the prequel to type 2 diabetes. It's this long, simmering process that's happening under the surface, and it's not harmless while it's simmering. The mechanics behind this condition are directly linked to a higher risk for heart disease, fatty liver, and even dementia.
So to really wrap our heads around what's happening inside our bodies, we need a really simple but powerful analogy. I want you to think about your body's entire energy system as just a series of locks and keys. Trust me, this is going to make it all click.
So insulin is the master key. When you eat, especially carbs, your blood sugar goes up. Your pancreas then releases insulin into your bloodstream. Its whole job is to travel around and unlock the doors to your cells, your muscles, your liver, to let all that sugar, that glucose, in to be used for energy.
And this is where we see the two paths diverge. In a healthy body, that insulin key slides right into the cell's lock, no problem. The door swings open, glucose rushes in, and your blood sugar goes back down to a stable level. Easy. But with insulin resistance, the lock on that cell gets stiff, it gets rusty. The key is there, but it's having a really hard time turning the lock. And this is the really sneaky part. When your cells aren't opening up, your pancreas basically panics and thinks, we need more keys. So it starts working overtime, pumping out more and more insulin to try and force those stiff locks open. This state is called hyperinsulinemia. And for a while, this brute force method actually works to keep your blood sugar numbers looking normal on a test. That's why a standard glucose test can completely miss the problem, all while these chronically high insulin levels are causing all sorts of chaos behind the scenes.
Okay, so if a simple blood sugar test might look fine, how in the world are you supposed to know if this is happening to you? Well, the good news is your body sends out a lot of signals. You just have to learn what to look for.
Insulin resistance is rarely one big dramatic thing. It's usually a pattern of smaller things. On your body, it might be that stubborn belly fat that just won't budge, maybe an increase in skin tags, or even those dark, kind of velvety skin patches you might see on your neck or in your armpits. Then there's how you feel. That extreme fatigue after you eat, really intense cravings for sugar or carbs, and that persistent brain fog. And if you look at your blood work, there's a classic signature: high triglycerides and low HDL. That's the good cholesterol.
And I really want to pause here for a second, because this is so important, especially if you struggle with those cravings. This is not a personal failure. It is not a lack of willpower. It's a biological problem. Your cells are literally starving for energy, so your brain just keeps screaming for more fuel, usually the quickest burning kind. Your body's entire energy signaling system is broken.
Now, when these different signs and symptoms start to cluster together in a specific pattern, it can lead to an actual clinical diagnosis that really raises the stakes. And that diagnosis is called metabolic syndrome.
So doctors have a checklist of 5 criteria to diagnose metabolic syndrome. As you can see here, they are a large waistline, high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high fasting blood sugar. And you don't even need all 5. Having just 3 of those is enough for an official diagnosis.
And the reason this diagnosis is such a big deal is that it's basically a massive warning sign from your body. It tells us that your risk for developing the major chronic diseases of our time, we're talking heart attacks, strokes, and of course full-blown type 2 diabetes, has gone up dramatically.
Now, I know that all sounds pretty intense, but please don't feel discouraged, because here comes the most important part of this whole conversation. This is not a one-way street. The damage is very often reversible, especially if you catch it early. And reversing insulin resistance isn't about some extreme diet or crazy workout plan. It really comes down to focusing on 4 core pillars. Number 1 is fuel, shifting to whole, minimally processed foods and easing up on the refined carbs and sugar. Second, movement. Just getting regular activity, especially simple things like a walk after meals, helps your muscles become so much more sensitive to insulin. Third, recovery. Quality sleep is absolutely non-negotiable. Poor sleep makes insulin resistance worse, period. And finally, resilience. Learning to manage chronic stress, because that stress hormone cortisol really messes with your metabolic health.
So the biggest takeaway here is one of hope. Seriously, your cells can learn to listen to insulin again. Those stiff locks can be oiled up and start working properly. Small, consistent changes in how you live your life, they really do compound over time, restoring your body's ability to work the way it's supposed to. So we'll leave you with this final thought. All those seemingly random symptoms, the tiredness, the cravings, the fog, they're not random at all. They are signals. They're your body's early warning system, trying to tell you that something is out of balance. The only question left is, are you ready to listen?